Hello survivors and welcome to another Walking Dead Road to Survival video, and in this video we're going to be going over the infectious assault rifle because many people like myself have completed level 30 on the battle pass as well as purchasing it, and that means they would have received this assault rifle from the battle pass rewards. And this is the weapon in question. This is the one from the battle pass level 30. It looks pretty good. I think visually on the left hand side I do think it actually looks pretty good, but we're going to be going over what sort of upgrades you should get on the weapon. But first we'll go over what characters are ideal to actually hold on to this weapon, as I have been seeing this question asked quite a bit. There are some really big mistakes that a lot of people are making as well based on the stats of the weapon. So first we'll go over the stats and then we'll look at the characters that it could actually, go into the hands of. Base stats, 30% HP, so it's more for a tanky character in terms of the stats. A very large AP bonus is actually quite nice. It means you don't have to upgrade the AP if you want to be getting your rush nice and quick. When attacking, a great chance to cause 25% infection 3 turns to the enemy. This is obviously the highlight part of the weapon. A great chance is around 50%, 25% infection is pretty decent. It does last for 3 turns, which is maybe a little bit slow because obviously you've not got a 100% chance of this happening. You could potentially not hit infection for the first 3 turns and then it's just like, well, okay, I mean, like, this hasn't done anything for me. And then in the last slot, every turn for every 20% AP, heal 5% max HP. Okay, so these are all the S-class tough characters that we have in the game, although there is a cheeky sneaky down in the bottom right hand corner as I have included Abraham in this list, as we do know he is upcoming, but I am going to straight away eliminate him from this potential list just because we don't know what he's going to be like right now, but we do know he's on the way. He is a tough character. There will be 15 tough characters in the S-class era, which actually doesn't seem like that many, to be honest. We have seen some leaked information about this guy and I have made a video on it, and we do see what his weapon is like, and I think his weapon is going to be kind of vital to how the rest of his kit will work. So even if we don't know what he's going to be like in fully, I think we know enough that I think that his base weapon is probably the way to go, especially as it has got 100% a chance to apply it, whereas this only has around 50% chance. So that means that Abraham is gone. He is eliminated for sure. Another character we're going to eliminate really quickly, and this is because I'm seeing a lot of errors made by a lot of people thinking, seemingly, that it is infection on defense. It is not infection on defense. I see a lot of people thinking that they could put it into the hands of Frost and it would be ideal for a defense team. Frost never does basic attacks on a defense team, ever, unless he is taunted or unless he is normalized. That's the only time he'd ever do it. Never put this on Frost. It's a not very good weapon. And on an attack team, Frost, again, you'd want a shield to protect your team. That's why you're taking him on attack. So not ideal there. Definitely eliminated Frost. Now the next characters we are going to eliminate are the percentage damage dealers, and this is because percentage damage dealers need percentage attack as the main stat, and tough characters also have really good options to amplify their rush damage, to amplify their basic attack damage, with the likes of double attack, rampage. There are also characters that have really good third slots already on their weapon, like let's say Princess. Massive amplification to damage, really works well within the kit, and because of this we are going to eliminate all the percentage damage dealers. That means that Priya, Princess, Mercer, Marcus, Beta and Job are all going to be eliminated. This is because they all do percentage damage and they will probably utilize this. The only character out of this list of percentage damage dealers that is maybe not going to be fully percentage damage built is going to be Job, but the rest of his kit is based completely around burn, so you're not going to do infection. It's just going to be a waste on this sort of character, in my opinion. Now the remaining characters are mainly defensive characters. Like, a lot of these characters do not need attack on anymore. Obviously we just eliminated all of the percentage damage dealers. Now I primarily see this weapon as being an attack team weapon, because on a defense team you'll be a massive window in those scenarios. So that means a character like Shiva would obviously be eliminated for me. Now I do know some people like to use Shiva with her payback specialist on attack. Now if you did do that, you could potentially put it in her hands there if you really wanted, but realistically I think the majority of people will use her on defense, and that is going to be an elimination for sure. The next elimination is going to be pretty much for the same sort of reasons. Morgan, mainly a defense team character. Again, he could probably be cheesed on an attack team, kind of like how Payback Shiva would be. But again, I don't think you'd want to put in his hands. But if you do, that's completely up to you. But I think 95% of his usage is going to be on defense. Now, the remaining characters, I think, are pretty much the only characters that have a chance of using this weapon, because they can be used as support characters on attack teams. On defense, if you wanted to use any of these characters, I'd say it's a big no-no for the same reasons I removed Shiva and Morgan. And so we're going to give a big tick to Wang Fa, obviously. Very good on attack, really good in raids, good in pretty much every part of the game. I like Wang Fa a lot. We also have, of course, Angel, who is mainly going to be used on attack teams because of her active, because she can counter AP gain characters. If you know you're coming up against a really fast team that has, let's say, Aravs on it or a 6-star Dr. Stevens, you know that her exhaust active is going to make that a big problem for those sort of characters and teams. Next up we have Tiffany, who I don't think has a very good weapon at all for an attack team. It's quite nice for defense because it has absolute defense, but for attack, it doesn't really do much. I really wish that her weapon gave her 100% stun immunity. I think that would have made her a really good character, and that way that active would have worked a much nicer. I think that would have been a much better counter to Mercer teams than Axel was in terms of balance, just so at least you had to take up a character slot and be kind of useless after that to get rid of the stun, whereas Axel, well, we know. But if you do use Tiffany, you can potentially use her and put an infection rifle in her hands. I don't think she's a great character. I don't think many people are going to be using her, but she is a tough character. She can hold the weapon, so she's definitely an option. Next up, we have Jason, who was the League's reward character. This character is interesting that it definitely can go in his hands. Now, I kind of think this guy is more of a faction assault like beast until maybe some more characters come out that can be used with bleed and stuff like that, more lacerators, that sort of thing. But Infection Assault is going to be great. Now, Infection does not work against the bosses in Infection Assault, but it will work against the side characters. So you could attack a side character, get Infection, and just focus on the boss again if you so wished. Lastly, we have Lily, and she is a percentage attack team leader, and you can use like Priya and Arav with her, but she does not do percentage damage herself. She's a main damage leader. You can put her in her hands on an attack team. She should not really be used on a defense team as a leader, maybe on a side character, but again, same reasons. Do not put the infection in her hands on a defense team. But I do think actually it's pretty viable in Lily's hands based on her kit. So I'd say these were the only 5 characters that I would recommend to use the rifle on, and again, only on attack teams. So now we have the 5 characters that we could use. We're going to go over the turn order for how you're going to use these characters. Wang Fa, for instance, for turn 1 would do a basic attack. For turn 2 would do his active, and then for turn 3 would do his rush. Ideally, unless things went wrong, for instance he got AP drain, or if he got impaired, obviously there are obviously things that can happen to him, but if all goes to plan, it will be basic attack, active, and then rush. You could even command him turn 2 to rush, because obviously he gets AP from his active, and that can be a very viable way to go. Now when it comes to Angel, you'll probably do her active first turn every time you take her in, because that's why you're primarily taking her on an attack team. At least you should be the primary reason. You should not be using her as a leader unless you are using, let's say, bleed characters around her or that sort of thing. And if you are doing that, this weapon would still be useful in her hands. But she would normally do turn 1 active, basic attack turn 2, and then basic attack turn 3. Because her active gives her no AP, she would obviously have to basic attack twice more after that. She would then go into the normal rush, basic attack, rush sequences. But that means that you get 2 opportunities of hitting infection on the rifle in the first 2 turns, which is obviously better than the situation we see with Wang Fa right now. Across to Tiffany, and she is going to be exactly the same as Angel, but you might go for basic attack, rush if you don't have anyone stunned on the first turn, if you are coming up against Mercer teams. If you are using her and you're not going against the Mercer team, no matter what, in the first 3 turns, you will always do 2 basic attacks, irregardless of if you do that active first turn, second turn, or third turn. The 4th character, Jason. Now, the main reason you're going to take this guy into a team is because of his active, and funnily enough, it's actually because of his basic attacks, because He can lacerate his own bleed, he can lacerate other characters' bleed. His active bleed is actually pretty good, so you probably want to get off turn 1. And this is where you can just do his active first turn, basic attack, and those basic attacks can hit the infection, but they will always lacerate. So that is actually kind of cool that there's no downside to doing his basic attacks. There's only just the infection is more of a bonus than anything. I kind of like that. It's just a shame right now that there's no real team that he fits in very well with. Now, it could happen down the line. Funnily enough, like I said, Wang Fa, the second ever tough character to be released, is kind of meta right now in some of the teams that are being used in Onslaught, especially the free-to-play accessible teams with the infection on Mateo and maybe a 6-star trader. You throw an S-class Wang Fa on top of that and the combo is really, really nice. So sometimes characters do get their chance just a little bit down the line. Next up we have Lily, and Lily is a bit strange because you can do her active turn 2, so she could be basic attack, active, basic attack, rush, but it really is, it's just so dependent on how you're going to play it. Her active does defense down and 100% heal block to 2 characters, and that means that if you are, for instance, going to definitely take a character out, you can follow it up with, let's say, Arab's rush, and you know that they're going to be absolutely destroyed because of the defense down, and he'll get his follow-up to rush again. That is actually quite nice, and also they cannot be revived for 2 turns, so the combo is quite nice there. But the guarantee is, if you don't want to do your active, it's basic attack, rush. Now, she's the only character in this list that will do that, but I think you're primarily going to use her as a support character. But her rush has actually been buffed recently, so that if she takes someone out, they will actually be decapped because crosshairs will apply with her rush before the main damage actually takes someone out. So maybe people are using her a little bit more than they were. Now, obviously, when it comes to Onslaught, a lot of this stuff will change. Basically, wherever you see rush, it will just be basic attack, and you will potentially be doing actives on Lily just to defense people down in that situation. And like I said with Wang Fa, because he's being used in some of these infection teams, it would just be like basic attack, active, basic attack, and then I think you would do maybe 2 or 3 more basic attacks and then hit up his active again. This is if you're going for the no rush bonus, which I think a lot of people do generally try to get in Onslaught. Especially now, a lot of people's rosters are getting a little bit more buffed up. So those are my thoughts on the characters themselves. I've just broken down the kind of like ideas. Personally, where I'm probably going to use this weapon the most would be on Wang Fa in an Onslaught team, or Jason in a potential future team that doesn't exist yet. And that's something we're actually going to talk about when it comes to this weapon. That 4 slot in things like raids and Onslaught is extremely powerful at countering the trader, because obviously, especially in Onslaught, after the first 2 or 3 turns, you're going to be up there at nearly 100% AP, if not 100% AP for sure. And that means you're going to be healing up the entirety of trader's infection, whether it be on his weapon or from his active, every single turn guaranteed. The only time it wouldn't happen is if you were under the effect of heal reduction, but you can obviously put on resist in that situation if you know that's going to be the issue. Now, I'd say there were 2 main ways to upgrade this weapon. You could, of course, eliminate the 4 slot if you really didn't like it, but I actually do think it's a good one to keep, so I'm going to keep it on the weapon for my examples. The first example is going to be pretty obvious. You just upgrade that HP to 45%, get a massive big health pool, makes you nice and tanky, get the defense for the character that you're putting this in the hands of in their combat mods, and they'll have a nicer balance that way. And of all the 5 characters that I listed, all of them have quite well balanced defensive stats, so it'll be a pretty nice boost to all of their hit points. Now, the second weapon, and where I'm most likely going to go myself with this weapon, is an Onslaught weapon where you just do not need AP on attack. You're going to make yourself extremely tanky in this situation. 35% HP, 35% defense. You can put this in the hands of, I would primarily say, Jason and Wang Fa, like I said before. Basically, Wang Fa being that support character, just getting the extra, maybe potential chances of infecting like the trader. If you didn't hit with the actives of someone, you could potentially hit it with the weapon, or he could just be your primary source of trying to hit infection if your roster isn't built up just yet, or he didn't pick up Mateo from the battle pass. And then if you put it into Jason's hands in this situation, he would, like I said before, he'd be lacerating, and he'd also be giving a chance of infection at the same time. So I kind of like the combo for both of those characters. I will say that overall though, my thoughts on this weapon have sort of degraded over the Battle Pass season. I kind of came to the realization of that list of characters that I showed you at the beginning, where the majority of tough characters are not going to be able to utilize it, and the ones that can are only really going to be able to utilize it in like maybe 1 or 2 situations. As you see, for me personally, I boiled it all the way down to just Wang Fa in Onslaught. That's the only time I could actually use it. While that isn't a terrible thing, it isn't giving me too many options, and options is always great, you know. Having to make a good decision is really, really important in the game, you know. That's the difference. Whereas I think it's so obvious that it's Wang Fa and Onslaught that I think a lot of people are going to use it in Wang Fa and Onslaught. But obviously it's up to you how you want to upgrade the weapon. You could swap out the 4 slot, try and give like bonus HP. You could try and make it a defense team weapon. It's going to be quite an investment, and the way you'd want to do that maybe would be like AP on defense, maybe the days when taking crit damage or something like that, or maybe the bonus HP in the 4 slot and then just upgrade the HP to 35%. I'm not really sure there. I don't think this is a good defense team weapon, just because 3-turn infection is long, and a lot of attack teams are much quicker than that, pretty much, and you're better off trying to make yourself as tanky as possible to slow them down by just 1 extra turn. If you do want to take characters out, have a character to actually do that with their rushes and their actual kit, not a niche weapon like this, in my opinion. But those are my ideas and thoughts when it comes to this weapon and its usage. Hopefully this has helped you guys. Do tell me what character you're planning to put in the hands of. How are you planning to upgrade the weapon? Let me know in the comments down below. That is the end of my video. I want to thank you very much for tuning in, and as always, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.